Welcome back to another edition of Client Success Stories. Of course, I'm Action Jackson, and I'm here with Dennis because Dennis lost 12 pounds, 6.2% body fat, 3.3 inches off his waist, 2.2 inches off his hips, and went from no pack to six pack in just 16 weeks. Incredible job, Dennis. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes, I would say I feel like I should just be running into a ring right now after that intro. So I appreciate that.
Well, you did a fantastic job. I'm super stoked. I'm obviously excited. I'm proud of you, all of those things. And we're going to get into all the good, amazing things. But let's take a step back as always, and let's just talk about where you were before you joined the program.
Yeah, sounds great. So when I was at the beginning of the program, for me, well, first of all, it starts way back when with migraines and all these things. So I just started a journey of trying to pay attention to my health, right? You just get to the point where you feel beat down. For me, it was mostly migraines. I probably wasn't eating very healthy. It was a combination of some things. So I started to make a lot of changes. A lot of it was diet and things like that. And then I saw the ad for the tonal, and I was like, that looks like a machine I could use. It can hold clothes really well, just like my other stuff. No, I'm just kidding. This one actually I didn't end up using as a clothes hanger, which is the first machine ever. So I was happy with that. Had watched your exercise programs on that unit, and then after it was probably a year, I felt stagnant. Like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a lot of history with working out or exercising. People would always look at me and say, "Oh, you look fine," But through the change I was trying to make, I was like, well, I'm starting to feel a little better. I'm feeling a little more healthy. My migraines have been cut back a little bit. Maybe this is a time to look into actually understanding how my body works and how I can actually affect my body, working out and things. So, it's been great. So started the program, and the staleness I felt, or where I had felt like I was stuck, went away. So that's good.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about that feeling of stuck, just because I've had this come up a number of times in the last few interviews I've done, and I want to just touch on it a little bit to kind of give it a little bit more depth. What do you mean by stuck? What did that really feel like? Physically, mentally, emotionally? Was it stats, weight? You just weren't seeing any changes? What was that stuck feeling like?
So for me, it was probably maybe, it was a little bit of the body shape. You look at that, and I felt like I was going through the motion of certain programs on the tonal, and I feel like I just wasn't getting as much as I probably could out of it, right? I'd made a lot of progress because I started from zero and no knowledge of anything. And I followed the programs, which were great, but I knew there was something more that I probably needed, either a full, all the things that I learned out in the program definitely helped make that so much better. So even from this point forward, I know that I won't feel stuck again, really, to some degree. I probably could, but there's a lot I learned, so that's good.
Fantastic. The reason I wanted to ask about that a little bit, because that can mean something different to everybody. So I wanted to know what stuck was kind of like for you. And it sounds like you used the tonal for a while, saw some good results, kind of wasn't sure what to do next, wasn't seeing the changes in the body. So wanted to do something to kind of, trigger some progress. Now, hard work is fantastic. As we know, working hard is a prerequisite for doing just about anything great. But it only works to a point, and at some point your hard work is going to start to have diminishing returns, and that's where we need to combine hard work with strategy in order to get those next level results and get to obviously the place that you're at, where you were starting in a good place, now you're in a great place, you're in a pretty awesome place. But that delta, to bridge that delta, takes hard work plus strategy. So was there a moment, a trigger, what was the thing that was I need to get the help? Was there a moment, or was it just a slow kind of hey, this is kind of grinding on me and bothering me? What was that like?
I think it was a slow kind of grinding on me feeling, because I'm sitting there I just knew there was something more to do. You see so many ads on TV, all those things. I didn't see an ad from you. There was no ad whatsoever. I kind of searched you out, and, so it kind of just came together by accident, really, for me personally. But it was the feeling of that kind of slow, and I would probably reached out, via, I think it was on Instagram, right? So I think it was that way. And it was probably me reaching out in some subconscious level of saying like, I wonder if I send this guy a message, if, you know, he'll respond or something like that. And not thinking that you even had a program, never looked anything up that you had done. And then you asked me a few questions, and I'm thinking about the questions you ask. And obviously I'm a car dealer, so you can see from the logo there, I'm like, it's okay. You can ask me for the sale, you know, of the program. It's okay. And it was, you know, again, the tonal is the ultimate machine. This program is the ultimate program. The two together for me put it all to make sense. And I learned a ton because I had no knowledge beforehand of, again, like I had no knowledge of working out. So I just watch, and I liked your workouts in the tonal because you happen to say things the right way. When my form would be bad, you would say something immediately and I'd be like, oh, how did you see me? You know, it's a little weird. So I put the tape over the camera. No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, it was good. So it worked out really well. And so I think that area of being stuck, feeling like I'm in a stagnant moment, and I probably knew I needed some type of assistance to push myself. And then I thought to myself, well, I'm 44 years old. This may be my last chance to, like, you know, make my body into into better shape, you know, and in turn, it wasn't just about physically how I looked, because I'm just not that kind of a person. Like I don't really care much about that. That is a byproduct of all of this. And I think it's funny because when it starts to happen, you're like, wow, that's cool, you know, but you're more like, for me, it's more childlike excitement than it is to be pompous or arrogant about that kind of change. And the feeling that you feel better and healthy, you definitely feel the energy level differences. There's just so many other benefits that keep rolling in with that. But again, like you said, it's hard work. Like it's not, you don't just push through no problem. I was a little bit hangry at the beginning, you know, and I think my wife, she dealt with me for a little bit, for about 4 or 6 weeks when you cut back there and but again, you know, the results were there. So I kept pushing and had no problem pushing myself through it because, you know, I could see those results. I was feeling a little off, but I knew that would be the case. You know, when you kind of run short on fuel, you're gonna be, you know, pulling out the reserves, and it takes more effort to run on the reserve tank than it is on the main tank. So.
Yeah, when you're going from good to great like you are, or really just doing any kind of transformation, there's going to be moments where it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not always going to be easy. It isn't all roses, butterflies, and, you know, unicorns running around. There are challenges, and no bones about it. This is challenging. Getting a six-pack, getting to the level that you're at is challenging. And there are some moments you have to overcome and deal with that. But here's the thing. Those moments are temporary, and you get stronger, you get better, you get more capable at dealing with them and overcoming those obstacles. And then pretty soon, as you mentioned, those results come, it starts to build momentum. And all of a sudden, it just kind of becomes part of the process, and it gets easier and easier and easier. But it's not that it gets easier, it's that you get better and you get more capable and you get stronger, etc., which is amazing. That is a very important distinction. And you obviously have gotten the results. You've crushed it. Physically, you look amazing. So there's that. And I know that's the byproduct. And what's funny is you mentioned this, and I hear this from a lot of my other clients. It's the byproduct. It's not often always the main driver, but it's kind of nice to have too. So what was the main driver for you in getting into this? You know, what was that reason why, that driving force that kept you on the path?
I think it all started with the migraines, and I've had them since I was 13. They're like the debilitating migraines. So, you know, I'd be at work. It's a family business. I could be on the floor in my father's office asleep for, you know, hours, and then trying to fight it off so then I could just go back to work, because I work a lot and I enjoy my work, all those things. But I felt like I was able to take a little more time in the morning and then of my routine, dedicate it to this. And it definitely affected how I feel in terms of those migraines. So to make an impact there as well, I'm more efficient in the time that I am at work. So it's like, you know, it's like condensed soup, you know, you just kind of jam it all into one period of time with more energy, more concentration, more everything. And it's hard to say. If somebody was to listen to this, they'd be like, oh, sounds pretty normal of what all those people repeat those same things, but it's real, and that's, for me, that's the biggest benefit that I can have.
Yeah, it's crazy, but the famous Richard Branson once said his number one productivity hack was exercise, and I agree 100%. There's days when I'm stuck at this desk, I'm going through programs, weekly reviews, doing all the things to obviously help clients like you be successful, and it's a lot of work, and I get tired and I get unfocused. And what do when I have those moments? I'm like, hey, I need to take a break, and I'll go jump on my tonal, do some exercises, get a workout in. Maybe I'll hit my Peloton, do some cardio, something, take our dog for the walk. Like, we'll do something that's active to get the heart rate up, to change my physiology, which ultimately changes my focus. It gives me energy, it creates energy. And now I'm back to work and I'm being a lot more productive than I was before. It's either that or grab another cup of coffee or have some more caffeine, which isn't going to do you any good. So it's like, if you're listening to this and you have those afternoon lulls where you're struggling for energy, it's like you have two choices. You could work out or you could just drink more caffeine. One of those two things is going to have tremendous health benefits, and the other is going to be very detrimental for your health. So
yeah, and I was one of those people, actually. So now that you mentioned that, it's I don't have that 2 o'clock lull, so that is a significant change, just to carry through the whole day has made a huge impact. I just getting the heart rate going, and that's what made me think back to it. Is like, well, I didn't have migraines, when I was younger, probably because I was more physical. You try to think of those things, but in reality, I'm sure it's just a lot has to do with genetics as well. But a lot of it has to do with good blood flow and getting the oxygen where it needs to go.
fantastic. So what were some of the obstacles along the way? You mentioned obviously being a little hungry sometimes in the beginning of the program, having to deal with that. But what were some of the other obstacles that you might have faced along the way? And how did you specifically overcome those obstacles for people kind of listening at home?
Yeah, I think from the biggest obstacle for me in the grand scheme of it is getting to the point where it's like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to make this choice that I'm going to commit to, and I'm going to follow through, and not let this pass no matter what. And that's a mindset change. And when I did that too, for me, a lot of things, maybe it's that like kind of near midlife crisis kind of thing when you're in your 40s and you start to think a little bit deeper about the health, and you see friends of yours from high school end up with serious health issues, from the worst case scenario to somewhere else in between, from good to bad. So when you start to see those things, and for me, I had already suffered from some personal things like, a migraine, my migraines being just a consumer of my life, to not have that anymore. It's pretty life-changing. That's all I can really say about that. It's just that life-changing moment of having a completely different feeling of every day is so much better.
That's amazing. And you mentioned to me, we talked privately about this, that you had made up your mind that you were committed to doing this, prior to us having that conversation. So a lot of people can struggle. They can go for years, kind of one foot in, one foot out. I kind of want to do this. I want to make this change, but I'm not so sure I'm 100% committed. And I think for many people, they can go for years without making that decision. But once they make the decision, it could be tremendously fast that they can get to some outcomes and see some benefits. How or what was that process like of you making that decision to commit and saying, yes, I'm absolutely doing this, I'm all in? Because that decision is so important for obviously all the success you had afterwards.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people just think they can't do it, right? So they half into it because they're afraid of failure, where it's like by the end of this program, you kind of think to yourself, well, I kind of do want to fail when I'm working out. Like, I want to get to that point of not making it all the way through my reps. And I want to get to that point where at first I used to look at that and be like, oh man, I have no strength, or I'm not strong enough, or there's some negative way to look at it. But you don't succeed unless you fail a bunch of times. So you succeed once to every, how many failures can you have? So don't be afraid of the failures, right? And for me, that's a massive mindset change. And I know, everybody can do it. They just have to choose to do it, right? And it's easier said than done. And it's so hard to, I wish I could say words that would, it's like talking to my teenage son or daughter, there's no words that will get them to do perfectly the right thing or whatever the choice may be. But, it's hard to really let people know that they have the capability of doing anything they want to if they choose to do it. And they have to believe in themselves and push themselves to do it. And you can see that even in your Facebook group, right? There's people that are at a place now where they're confident in speaking in the Facebook group. And at the beginning, I'm sure they weren't, right? Or maybe they weren't outgoing people, or they were outgoing people, whatever it may be. But they get to that point and they're going, geez, I really can do this. And I'm gonna spread what I have to those other people as well, so they can. I know I do, is like trying to tell people, great job, that look, you're that's normal, or whatever their questions may be, because you want them to know that this is okay, and that group that you have there is a good group of people, that they're not in your inner circle of people saying, oh, you look fine, or these, because sometimes you don't do that diet for the look, you're doing it for how you feel, and to just make yourself feel better. And that will all come. And when you have a supportive group like those folks there, that's good. So for me, I'd say, that's a good area. Just as a side note too, for me, that mindset change, I listen to podcasts when I'm, exercising. So I'd go through your workouts about 45 minutes ish, it could be a little bit longer depending. Sometimes I will get phone calls from work at that time, or whatever it may be in that early morning. And it takes a little bit longer, but I'll get through it. And, when I'd listen to those podcasts, I'd pick out what was important to me. And a lot of it is mindset, is a lot of those kinds of trainings, it's not about, I might listen to some things about my industry that I'm in, but maybe there's something else for somebody else. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's, so I can better coach my employees and, better listen to my employees, or whatever it may be. But you're learning about even my children, really, and my wife, and making sure I carry those same kind of concepts in all the aspects of everything I'm trying to do every day. And I do really think that mindset change can help. And you combine that with what we're doing here. You're working on your mind, you're working on your body at the same time. And hopefully I can be functional when I'm, 65, 70 years old, and I can take that vacation and walk up a hill. Okay. And, those are just the biggest things. I know there was a load of stuff in there, and I don't mean to throw anything too far off, but
that was all fantastic. Really appreciate the detailed responses and the insight. I mean, that's what this is all about, is getting inside your head and finding out what's going on. How did you manage this? How did you do it? What were the obstacles? What would you do to overcome? What's your mindset like? That's really the good stuff that we're looking for. So I appreciate it. So I think there's a lot obviously there to unpack, but I love what you said about the mindset, because fitness is a domino habit. It's something that infiltrates and affects all the other areas of our life, good or bad. And if you don't do anything with it, it's going to be bad. And if you just sit around, problems will come find you. They will. Health problems will come find you. But if you take a more proactive approach like you have, you can really offset a lot of those things. And then all of a sudden you build confidence, you build mindset, you build energy, and you start to see how you've overcome these things with your workouts and pushed yourself and gotten out of your comfort zone. And you're like, oh, wow, maybe I can do that in this other area of my life. And it's just amazing how it bleeds into all these other areas. It's such a domino habit. And we see this time and time again with clients that go through the program. So I think that's such an important lesson, and something that's just so valuable, because you make one change here and it just makes all these other changes in your relationships, your finances, your work, productivity, your attitude, and just general outlook on the world, which is fantastic. So we have that piece. Obviously, you overcame a lot of obstacles, challenges. You've done a fantastic job. The transformation, again, has just been incredible. What are the lessons, or maybe tips, tricks, mindset, anything, that you feel like would be really necessary, relevant to share for other people out there, maybe outside of some of the things that we already chatted about? Is there anything else that you could think of that comes to mind that you think is particularly important?
Yeah, I would say, that one idea of that listening to podcasts when you work out, right? Find something that you might be so into your workout you can't hear anything. You can play it again, no worries. They have a start over button, and
Your subconscious could process it,
yes,
even if you're not necessarily directly paying attention.
it's 100% the truth, because there were some times where I'd be like, I don't hear anything they said because I just was focusing on trying to make sure my arms didn't flail or something. But yeah, then I'd go back and play it again and be like, oh, but I remembered everything. So that's 100% the truth. And so that's definitely an area to be. And I think if there's anything I could give to people to succeed, it would be to have that moment and know you can do it. That's the biggest thing. And a lot of people, I feel like, even for myself, there's so many times I tried to do something and I would just kind of start, get a cold and then be done. And this time I got a cold a couple of times and I just said, I'm not going to be done. I'm just going to keep going. And there were times where my elbow kind of is sore and I shouldn't do that. Instead I just lowered the weight a little bit and just still did it. So I wouldn't do it to a place where I'm going to hurt myself or do anything like that. It's just, safety first, but I would still go through the routine and still keep the motion going because I didn't want to stop that pattern. And normally I wouldn't do those things, but in this time I'm like, I'm just not going to allow myself to stop. So I'm going to just keep going, keep plugging away. And even if I lowered the weight and felt like I was a failure in that sense of being, not strong, that's okay. Because I found no matter what, I just stayed on the path. And eventually you get pretty excited about just saying, okay, I can do this now.
Dennis, I'm getting literally chills and goosebumps listening to this, because what you just said, I wish I could just bottle that up and give that to people when they join the program, or give that to the people that are out there listening, because it's so important to just keep going and moving forward regardless. So many people have these black and white, this perfect idea that if it doesn't go perfect, then they're just going to be off. It's just, I'm either off or I'm on. And it just can't be that way. There's going to be good days. There's going to be bad days. Sometimes you're going to get sick. Sometimes you're going to be 100%. Sometimes you're going to feel like it. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're going to PR. Sometimes you're going to be doing the lowest volume you could possibly doing, recovery weights or whatever. But the key is you just keep moving forward at all costs. And again, not to get injured or to be your detriment, but knowing the difference between those good pains and the bad pains, working around injuries, not going through injuries. In that way, you never lose the momentum. And that's how you're going to get through that finish line. There's a great book called Touching the Void, which they turned into a movie about these two climbers. And one of the climbers falls down, breaks his leg, and it becomes apparent they're not going to be able to get off the mountain together. So his climbing partner has to cut the rope and leave him on the mountain. And 5 days later, this guy crawls down the mountain back to base camp. And he's blown it. His partner's like, how did you make it here? And he's like, I made it here 50 yards at a time. I just chunked down. I looked 50 yards ahead and I just crawled 50 yards. And then I got there and then I just did it again and again and again. And that's how you get six-pack abs. That's how you completely transform your health. That's how you lose 100 pounds or any of the other amazing transformations we've had. It's always the same. You just do it one step, one set, one workout, one rep at a time, one meal at a time, one macro at a time, and then you're going to get there.
Exactly. And you fail sometimes on that way, right? So, and it's okay to fail. Like you might make it to 50 yards and you feel like you failed, but really then you go do another 50 yards. So actually you did 100 yards. You didn't just fail. You made it 100, and then you do it more and more and you go, I'm going to be able to do this, I think, and that's what the key part is for everybody to know, that out of the gate, that it's not going to be easy because it's a mental game, and it's more mental than it is physical. But once you can push yourself through it, you're going to be able to do anything really. And you get through that program and you realize other challenges in life aren't as big. There's just so much more it can pour into. And, again, just stay away from the cheesy side of it and somebody feel like it sounds like what everybody else says when they get into shape, which I have never been in shape. I've never been way out of shape either, but I just don't exercise a lot. So just having getting that blood flow going and getting things going, for me in the morning, some people it's evening, but whatever works for them. And it's just, I committed to waking up earlier. Just there was a lot of things that in that process to say, I'm just going to do this. And I did. And I'm going to continue to do that because now it doesn't feel like I'm making as much of an effort as I had to at the start. And really, when you think about it, 16 weeks, that's 4 months. If I could have written a check for this program and just had this instantly feel this way that I feel now, I would do it in a heartbeat. And the energy and effort that it took to put into it does take a lot, no doubt about it, but it's so well worth it by the time you're at the end. If you follow the program, everything's going to be fine.
I appreciate that. Two more questions because I want to be cognizant of your time. First question is, what was the self-talk like, or how did you manage to hold true to the promise that I'm not going to stop moving forward? I'm not going to give in. I'm going to just execute, and I'm going to check the boxes, and I'm just going to keep going. How did you manage that? Because so many people start off saying, oh, I'm going to do that, but then they get sick, and then it's like, oh, well, I'll just do it tomorrow. Oh, no worries. Like, I'll take a week off, and then they fall off quickly. How did you manage to always move forward?
For me, so I'm sure there's different motivators for different people, right? So for me, sometimes paying for a program can do that, right? For me, it's that like writing a check for a dollar amount is, I can't waste, what I've had to work for. So for me personally, it was like, okay, I'm going to pay this amount for this course, whether it's, $5 or whatever dollars. It's just the point that I'm paying for something that I had to already kind of commit myself to earn. And now I'm saying I'm going to commit to this program. So I don't know if that's an okay thing to say, but for me, it's like, all right, I'm not going to waste that money. I'm not going to waste that money. And now then you start to go, okay, now I'm not going to waste that time. And then it just keeps expanding into other things that then when I started to miss a program, it was not just like missing just the money or just, like I didn't want to give up on the time that I lost to do that workout, just to go backwards after all that effort. Once you start getting, now you're 4 weeks in, I lost it for that hunger I felt for 4 weeks. What do? Start that over again and annoy my family while I'm hungry again, So, and my wife did a fantastic job, and I appreciate her so much in making sure I had the right food and all those things. Because not that I can't figure it out, but she understands that much better than I do. So that was a great support. So I had a good support system at home as well, which does help. But again, there are so many alternatives, there's so many plans and options that people can have. And I know that you're a great resource for that. So in the program, so if somebody was to wonder what they should do, there's still so many good things. But yeah, for me, it's like once I kind of, the first step is paying for something. The next step is my time. There's all these things that have value to me, and that everybody else has their own important thing of value to them. And if you're sacrificing something like that, because I think it's hard for people to look into the future and say, to truly say, well, I want to be this way when I'm 60 or 70, like I had mentioned earlier. That kind of comes afterwards, in my opinion. Then you start to realize, well, that's now the reason why I'm going to do it, because now you can start to see the future, which is really that mindset shift is the before and then the after. And the after has really helped me kind of say, now that I'm into this program and I'm going to sign up for the legacy program, I can see a future. So now I'm like, all right, well, how do I keep this going? How do I maintain it? Not maintain. I don't want to use that word. I'd rather say, how do I make sure I continue forward and can continue to grow, whether it's mentally, physically, whatever it may be, whatever that entails, that's more exciting than the alternative plan, than shrinking, and again, that doesn't have to mean in terms of size or monetarily or mentally, anything. It's just, just regressing or progressing. You're either doing one or the other. There's no such thing as staying still. So, I always look at it and say you're either succeeding or failing all the time. And again, failure isn't bad. You learn in those periods of time. They build your story. You can remember this. I remember when I did this or when I did that, and that didn't turn out so good, but it's a great story. And you'll start to succeed a lot more after that.
Wow. There's a lot of wisdom in all of that you just shared, Dennis. So thank you. I appreciate it. You mentioned obviously paying, and there's an old saying, those who pay attention, but it's really getting leverage against yourself, right? And one of our clients named JJ, who was in the program, I remember he talks about this moment where, you know, he was like, I felt so motivated. I wanted to do this. I was ready to make this change. He's like, then I joined the program. I invested with you. You know, it's day one. He's like, it's 9 p.m. and I haven't done that first workout. He's like, I had all this leverage against myself, but it still wasn't enough to quite click me over the edge. And then my wife walked in and said, hey, don't you have to do the first workout of the program that you're in? He said, well, you know, I could do it tomorrow. It was a busy day at work, a lot of stuff going on. I could just do it tomorrow. And she goes, oh, so like, you're just going to waste that money that you spent on the program now? And that's that? And she said, okay. And she just walked out. And he's like, the disappointment, the stuff he saw in his his wife's face. He's like, I did the workout immediately, woke up at 5 a.m. the next day, did the next workout, and then he was off to the races. And he ended up being one of our incredible success stories. But I also think about myself when I was trying to get this business off the ground. I got all this leverage against myself. I'm $70,000 in credit card debt. I have to pay off this debt. I'm trying to get engaged to my now wife. I'm trying to get her an engagement ring. She wants to have a wedding. Like all this stuff, my back completely up against the wall. And I would sit down at my desk here and I would write down all the reasons why I needed to make this business happen, why I needed to be successful, and I needed to make it work, and all the positive things that were going to happen. But then I also write down all the negative things that were going to happen if I didn't make it work. And I'm not joking. I would sit here at my desk. I would cry for like 10 minutes thinking about disappointing her, disappointing my parents, all the stuff, everybody who had faith and trust in me, and just feeling like I'm letting all these people down, and letting my wife down was just the worst. And I would think about the look on her face and what that would mean if I wasn't able to come through for her. And then I would get my ass to work. And I paid off that debt in 14 months. We got married like a year later. We had 3 weddings because it was COVID weddings. And it's been just off to the races since then. And it's been a whirlwind. But getting that leverage against yourself, I think, is just so important. And it's one of the real incredibly valuable tactics of high performers. And you see it with people like Kevin Garnett or Tom Brady and how they use it still in their careers. Even at this point, when they've won all these championships, they find ways of getting leverage against themselves. And it's really an advanced tactic. And it's super cool that you brought it up. Before I ask the last kind of question, I want to just acknowledge you, take a second and just say thank you so much for trusting me, for investing in yourself, for all your hard work, for obviously sharing your story and doing this. It means so much to me that you would come on here and speak to me about your journey, because it just means a lot to me. And I really thank you. And I just want to say how much I appreciate you and all the effort you put in, because I know this isn't easy. And giving you the plan and the strategy and the guidance and stuff, that's only a small portion. You've got to still put in the sweat equity. You got to push yourself. You got to do the workouts. You got to eat the food. I can't do those things for you. I wish I could. And you did it all. You were a model client. You crushed it. You knocked it out of the park. Whatever adjective you want to use, you did it. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate you. Thank you.
No, I appreciate, I'm just glad you have the program, right? I know at the end of the day, I'm a customer and, yeah, exactly. Whatever verbiage we want to use, at the end of the day, right? That sometimes we can feel that way, but really, I feel like we've built a friendship out of it, and it's yes, I'm paying for this program, absolutely, but there's a benefit to that, and I need to make sure you're still in business tomorrow, so I can make sure that I can reap the benefits of your program. So, that's what we're here for. That's what it's supposed to be, and I can appreciate all that you've given me throughout this program, and the quick responses and everything else. If there ever was a question. That's the most important thing that I can ask for is, it's great client service, and, it's a great program, and anybody that if they feel like they can push themselves to say, or feel the need that I need to do this, or maybe they feel stagnant on working out on their tonal currently, or any machine ultimately, or maybe they just don't have a lot of experience in what they're doing, whether it's with macros, because I didn't know anything about those things until the program got started. And if I could figure it out relatively quickly, you were always a resource if I had a question. The Facebook group, you could just drop a question on there and you're going to get a bunch of good answers from good people that genuinely want to see you succeed. So that's helpful as well. And I used to think Facebook groups, I'm not really sure about those, or, but that group is great. So, to all the people, if they made it this far in this thing, shout out to them as well.
Thank you. Last question. Was it worth it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was well worth it. Yeah. Yeah. I'd do that all over again, which I kind of am in a way by continuing with the legacy thing. So we're going to keep it going. And, I could foresee myself doing this for a while because you feel a lot better when you're done with it. So it's good.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate you. Everybody out there, remember, action is the difference between dreaming and succeeding. See you in the next one.